Hello and welcome to the HQ Movie Review Podcast. I'm Josh.
I'm Jack.
I'm Brandon.
And I'm Heather.
And this week we watched Batman Begins.
Yeah, we did.
From 2005.
I also like to call this the disorienting jump cut movie.
Not the catchiest title, but accurate. Yeah, this was definitely before stunt casting and like stunt fighting were really priorities.
Like they were a thing, but they just decided this movie didn't need any of that.
Yeah, why have choreography when you can just jump 37 times in a single fight? If they can't tell what's happening, they don't know that you're not really punching.
Oh, buddy. 37 in a fight. It was more like 37 every second.
No, Josh, those are frames.
Yeah, I mean, I can make more sense out of the original Transformers movie than I could out of these fight scenes.
Oh, gosh.
That is impressive.
Yeah.
Now, can you make more sense out of the more recent Transformers movies than you could out of those fight scenes?
I haven't seen those.
Yeah, I'd have to have seen those. Apparently Bumblebee was good.
Was it?
Wait. What's the most recent Transformers movie?
I think Bumblebee.
I think it's Bumblebee.
I
Because
haven't seen it.
after, what was it that failed? Dark
Jeez.
something?
Dark of the Moon was one of them. I don't think it was the last one. There was one
No.
after that.
Something
No,
about
yeah.
extinction, right? Age of Extinction?
That's what it was.
Yeah.
Age of Extinction.
With the dinosaur robots.
Oh my goodness. I didn't even watch trailers for that one.
Anyways, we're here to talk about Batman.
Ah,
we?
yes.
Christian Bale Batman. What a time. So, the first serious take on Batman in film.
Yeah.
Was that the first serious take?
Yeah, before
Yes.
this it was, Batman and Robin and
Batman Forever.
yeah, those. I guess they were semi-serious, but they were also very camp still. Super camp. Not
Okay.
Adam West camp, but pretty camp.
Okay.
It's, the nipple suit.
Bat nipples, yes.
Oh, good.
Not to say George Clooney didn't do a good job, but
I think he was a better Bruce Wayne than a Batman, honestly.
Yeah,
They didn't give him very good material to work with, though.
that's fair.
The Bat credit card, really?
oh god.
It's
Good.
better than Bat Shark Repellent.
Once again, Adam West show. Nothing but camp. That was full Silver Age comics when the Joker was just, a prankster.
Well, look, that show is gold.
Yeah.
I love it.
Some days you just can't get rid of a bomb. Classic.
Good.
This movie, not a part of that canon.
No, definitely not. They
Or-
definitely went a much darker tone for this movie.
Yeah, it's also a part of the, pre-established universe series of films. It's in that era where it's like, oh no, this is a universe where no other superheroes exist. Batman is just an isolated incident. Also, Metropolis doesn't exist.
Yeah.
He's just this one billionaire with a mental disorder.
Yeah.
Man, did you know Batman's afraid of bats? I never would have guessed.
You probably would never have guessed from Christian Bale's acting in this movie. Every time he was supposed to be scared of bats, he looked like he was just constipated.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, as an adult, he's mostly gotten over that fear of bats.
But, okay, if he has mostly gotten over this fear of bats as an adult, why did he make a whole entire persona?
Because he wants other people to be... Did you not watch the movie?
Yeah, but what I'm saying is, if it's not that terrifying for him anymore, why is he so, fixated on the bats?
Because criminals are a cowardly and superstitious lot, Josh.
It's just...
He needs to be a symbol of fear, and bats kind of scary.
the whole point was that he was supposed to be, terrified of bats, even now.
It's not the point.
He was inspired by his childhood fear.
Then why did he, every time he had the hallucinogenic drug, did he always envision bats? He was afraid of them.
Well, yeah, I mean, it's a childhood fear. It's not...
He's not completely over it.
Yeah, and it's also not rational. If you, in your rational mind, saw, a clown, you'd be like, oh, that's just a person. Now, a clown at night's different, but, a regular clown at daytime, you'd be like, oh, that's not scary. That's just a dude with makeup on.
I don't know. It just seemed like they were trying to portray him as being afraid of bats, and he just never felt like he was afraid of these bats.
I will say, though, the young Bruce Wayne actor, he did not do a good job of acting.
No.
He was he was on some like Ong level of acting.
Who?
Exactly.
Yeah.
Like it sounded exactly like it. Like just I am reading dialogue. I am afraid. Like it was that. There was no emotion.
Especially in like the scene where his parents die.
Right?
Yeah.
Like I realize it's supposed to be a traumatizing thing, but he just like stood there and looked at him.
Yeah. And it's kind of went, oh no.
My parents.
They're broken. Boy howdy, this is gonna age super well when that's not a meme anymore.
This is where I saw my parents die, Raphael.
Cowabummer.
Good.
Like the scene where he falls into what will eventually become the Batcave. He's supposed to have broken his leg, and he just kind of lays there. And at first I'm just like, wow, even as a kid he was this stoic, huh? And now that I've looked back at it, it's probably just the kid not being a
that
very
kid's just
good
not a
actor.
great actor. There are two children. I guess there are three child actors in this movie. One of them is not great.
Look, Josh, you don't get to talk. You hid the fact that you broke your arm for like 2 days.
I broke my thumb and it was for a week.
You lowered the severity and then you increased it.
You're not helping yourself here, Josh.
I mean, breaking your leg though is significantly more traumatic.
I mean, I guess.
I'm pretty sure he broke his arm in the movie. But
He broke a bone.
he broke something.
They didn't
Okay.
actually say.
Yeah.
I assumed his leg because he fell down there. I don't know.
I could have swore he was in a sling, but
The
this
point
a
is, he
minor
broke
detail.
a bone that it was bad enough that it needed to be set.
And then he just kind of laid down there and didn't emote while his dad hooked up. Like his dad like rappelled down the well to get him. That wasn't set up. He had to take time to set that up to get down there. And the whole time, young Bruce Wayne is just lying at the bottom of this well, staring up and not doing anything.
Yeah.
The bats passed a long time ago.
I think I assumed he broke his leg because like his dad had to like princess carry him into the house.
Just because he was a child.
I mean, that's a fair point too, but that's probably why I assumed it was his leg. But anyway, like the child actor, not very good.
No.
And then there's the child actor for Rachel, who seemed pretty fine,
Sorry.
honestly. She seemed like she was.
Yeah. She didn't have a lot to do, but she did what she did pretty well. And then King Joffrey
And
was
then
there.
Joffrey's there, and no amount of good acting in this movie will make up for his atrocities in Game of Thrones.
Yeah, it's real unfortunate that like retroactively he can never be in a role anymore. He's just Joffrey.
I don't know who you guys are talking about. So
Listen, everyone knows who King Joffrey is, even if you didn't watch the show.
I only saw the last season of Game of Thrones.
Right, but like you still know who he is.
Why
Heather,
would-
for clarification, the only reason I saw it is because I had just moved into the house.
Okay, but why would you only watch the last
Because
season?
literally everyone was over at the house watching it on a projector that was next to my room.
I mean, yeah, I know. I moved into that room as well. I understand that you can't sleep or do anything else, but why would you just not watch the other seasons first?
Because we were watching the last season as it came out. And I didn't really care that much.
The point is, Joffrey is many unspeakable words.
Okay.
He's a terrible, terrible person or character
On the show.
on the show. Actor, I'm sure, is fine,
Yeah,
but he will
he's great.
never live that down.
I mean, he makes pretty good donuts in theme parks. No?
I'm just
Okay.
gonna insert
No,
cricket
no.
noises there.
Oh, good. It was in my head.
I do want to say something that I realized. Batman would never have existed, and none of this would have happened if Bruce hadn't stolen that arrowhead from Rachel at the beginning of the movie.
I'm sure he could have fallen on the well to something else.
Well, maybe, but all we know is that he took the arrowhead, ran away, fell down the hole, became scared of bats, and that is the reason why he had to leave the opera house with his parents.
I mean, there's a couple dominoes in that chain that could have been taken out.
Yeah, like the people who abandoned this well. Hey, why don't you put a cover on that?
Yeah. or his parents not going to see a play about bats for some reason, like
Or
why?
leaving out the side door.
Yeah, or leaving out the side door that leads to Crime Alley.
I think that's the biggest one. Why would you?
Why would you go that way?
Yeah.
Go out the back. Go back through the lobby. Why would you go out through the back door that leads to Crime Alley?
Also, I have to point out the Opera House immediately next to Crime Alley, but also towards the end of the movie, you get to see like what is at the base of Wayne Tower, and it's like another like really kind of shady looking area. Like Gotham is full of areas that look like really nice area, like facilities, immediately adjacent to just the grungiest alleys
Yeah,
and
it's-
crime areas.
Have you ever been to New Orleans?
Yes, I have. There's significantly more of a gradient there.
Yeah.
I guess that's fair.
Gotham
yeah.
is weird. It's built on like 2 levels. Like there's like Rachel at one point drives down. Rachel in the movie, not Rachel our co-host. Drives like she takes a turn off the road, drives down a ramp, and is immediately in like a camp, like a homeless camp, like directly beneath anything in Gotham. It is just the ghetto. Like you're never 5 feet away from like a homeless person, or like more than like 20 feet above.
There's a cutoff in Gotham between the rich and the poor, and it's like a vertical height cutoff.
Yeah. The closer you get to the ground, the poorer it gets.
Which is why Wayne Tower is like the tallest building.
Exactly.
So I know we were talking about how choppy the fight scenes in this were, and according to IMDb, you never actually see Batman hit anyone because
No.
it always cuts away right before he hits someone, and then you just see them stumbling somewhere.
Yeah, it's like a 90s superhero cartoon. We can't actually show the violence, but we can imply it.
Put the little pow on screen.
Good. It's just the whole fight is just pow.
Yeah.
Imagine it.
It's actually kind of funny because like cartoons, especially cartoons in the 90s and early 2000s, have always had this like specific restriction of, hey, you can't actually show people getting punched or like shot or whatever with guns. But it's only made them be more creative and way more violent in how they depict fights, because now that they can't show punches or kicks, they have to think of ways around it, and so they do more wild stuff. Like in the Batman animated series, they use like Tommy guns because you can't have like regular imitatable guns on screen.
Mm-hmm.
But it's like, all right, well, that's instead of just having handguns, every single mobster has like a machine gun now, or lasers.
Yeah.
There's no in between.
Scarecrow is literally tased in the face while riding a horse.
Yeah, that was actually pretty funny.
It was.
He's giving this like monologue about like, yes, the city in fear, and then Rachel just tases him in the face and he screams. He screams and falls over, and the horse just runs away into the night. So I want to talk about the weird schism that has come from them pronouncing the leader of the League of Shadows as Ra's al Ghul.
Ugh.
I hate it, and it bothers me so much because his name is Raish.
Yeah, it's Ra's al Ghul.
It's a minor nitpick, really, but it does bother me a lot because they've ruined the pronunciation, and then people who have only seen these movies are adamant that that's how it's pronounced.
I did not know until just now that is how it's supposed to be pronounced.
Case in point.
This movie was my introduction to Batman.
Which is disappointing, but okay. It's fine. It was in a safe place with us. I'd rather you try it here than out somewhere on the street where it's dangerous.
No, like
But seriously, why do you think they changed it?
I have to imagine it's just for like quote unquote simplicity's sake, because like if you see it written, it is like RA''S, and like, well, I don't want to have to confuse the audience with this weird pronunciation of this Middle Eastern man's name, so we're just gonna call him Raz.
I mean, like, here's the thing,
It's
though.
also not Middle Eastern in the movie, but that's not important.
Like, here's the thing, though. It's a name. You can just assume, like, alright, it's spelled weird. Whatever. You move on.
Yeah.
And that's only a factor if you have subtitles on. You don't see his name spelled out in the movie.
Yeah, no, it is weird. It's a lot like not to be a Spider-Man fan over here, but it's a lot like how in Sam Raimi's Spider-Man trilogy they gave him the organic webs. And so anyone who was in like the general audience who had never read a Spider-Man comic or seen like a show or anything just thought that it was normal for him to have organic webbing.
Oh, I absolutely thought it was normal.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's the problem with simplifying your like characters when you adapt them, is that people who only have that adaptation now think that that's what the character is like, and then they're gonna get really confused when they find another source and it's not like that. Which is tying it back to Batman. One of the problems with this franchise as a whole is that it treats Batman as this dark and brooding loner who like never has any friends. His only connection is Alfred. He like also he's never like a detective in these. He's always just like, well, I have Lucius to do my science stuff, and I'm gonna go out and punch bad guys. And that's not what Batman's character is. One of the central tenets of Batman's character is that he is a detective, like he's the world's greatest detective, and he is a family man. He has the most sidekicks of anyone in the DC universe.
And they are all his children.
Yeah. Some of them he has adopted, some of them just hang around. Like they're just there all the time anyway. But like he has the most sidekicks. He is a family man. And these movies kind of just erase that. And so anyone who's like introduction to Batman, no offense, Brandon. Anyone who doesn't know anything about Batman besides these movies just thinks that he's a cool ninja. Which he is, but there's other stuff to him.
I did eventually see the George Clooney ones after this movie came out and learned more about Robin and whatnot.
I mean, that's also not the greatest
Yeah,
source.
it's really not. I do want to say, in terms of how many sidekicks or partners that Batman has had, he's had at least 10. Like, he consistently works with at least 10 different other people in Gotham.
Yeah. And sometimes reaching out to like other cities. Gotham is very saturated with heroes.
It is. And yet the crime rate's still really high.
So you mentioned Lucius earlier, and I just wanted to bring up the absolute ridiculousness of this man. He can do anything.
It's a concept we've run into before. He is the generic scientist. He can do any vaguely scientific thing. Mechanical science, chemical science, computer science. Lucius does it all. He is generic scientist.
Like,
Now, weren't most of the things like had been developed for the military and they had tested, or was he actually developing those things?
he was
most-
doing all that.
Well, no, most of that's yeah, he was in charge of that division. Most of that stuff was developed like previously. That was still his division, and he also had like an encyclopedic knowledge of all of the things in that warehouse. He analyzed Bruce's blood and came up with an antidote to the toxin just from like what he could find that was still in Bruce's system. And then he also hacked his way back into like Wayne Towers.
Yeah. Like, this man has like all of the mechanical engineering knowledge like possible to do all this. I mean, material science, you name it. All the things just to come up with all of the gadgets and just equipment that he has in that facility. I mean, the tumbler alone is like a feat of engineering. And I mean, the suit, I mean, everything, every single thing in that entire warehouse was like just crazy over the top, over engineered, and
And one of a kind, which is very convenient for Batman.
exactly, and one of a kind. And that was all spearheaded by Lucius.
Yeah.
And then he's also a doctor who can just analyze a blood sample, isolate the compound that's extra in his blood. So he had to have known what to look for.
Yeah, he pulled that out, and then he made like an inoculation for it.
Yeah. Then he just like goes, oh yeah, I synthesized an antidote for it. And it's like, that takes teams of people's years.
I do, now that we're talking about all of these things that Lucius made, I find it hilarious that Bruce Wayne had all of these weapons at his disposal, and then he just goes and finds some sheet metal and makes batarangs.
Yeah.
Well, none of them were bat themed.
Like, here's the thing. Until Lucius got involved with the whole blood incident, and I don't even know if after this, but Lucius wasn't involved with Batman in any way. He didn't know, and he didn't want to know. So when he wanted bat-themed weapons, he couldn't go to Lucius and go, hey, so have you heard of this Batman character? Crazy, right? You know, it's like, there's this crazy guy, he's a vigilante, he's weird. Hey, but by the way, do you have any bat-shaped explosives?
Shuriken?
You know, do you have any bat-shaped anything? I mean, I'm just asking. You know, it's for a friend.
So they conveniently skipped over the part where he like had to form the bat symbol for the chest part of his armor.
Yeah.
Because they showed him painting the armor black. And then later Batman shows up and he just has the bat symbol on his armor already.
Yeah, exactly. So, and I don't know, I don't remember the second movie. Is Lucius even in the second movie?
Lucius stays a part of the team. Like,
Okay.
Going forward.
I could not remember. But does he know, like, Bruce Wayne is Batman in the second movie?
Yeah, no, he's just helping them do Batman shit.
Yeah.
Like after this.
Well, because as it's shown at the end of the movie, eventually Bruce becomes the primary owner of Wayne Enterprises, so he doesn't need to keep it secret anymore. At least from Lucius.
Yeah. He's just like, hey, Lucius, I need some more bat tech.
The whole point was that Lucius needed to keep it secret because the other people that were running Wayne Enterprises would have figured it out. And
Yeah.
But yeah, so anyway, like, now he can ask Lucius to make specific bat-themed weapons and things. But yeah, it's so wild to me. Lucius just as a character is just absolutely unreal and real, like, just crazy.
Yeah. These movies also like catapulted his character into like popular culture. So now he does show up in like comics and animated movies and stuff.
Well, yeah, you gave the character, like, gave that role to Morgan Freeman.
Also, yeah, that helps.
Like, of course, immediately everyone's gonna go, hold on, who's this guy?
it was actually, when I was reading through the IMDb facts, Morgan Freeman was a fan of Batman and had read the comics since he was 9 years old.
Wow.
Had no idea who Lucius Fox was.
Yeah. Because Lucius Fox was a non-character. He was just like, it was basically nothing. And they're like, okay, but what if we made him something?
And that right there is the power of Morgan Freeman.
Morgan Freeman didn't even know who Morgan Freeman was playing.
And now everyone does.
Debatably.
Okay. Well, now a significantly larger portion of the population does.
There you go.
We'll give him that.
I would not have remembered his character's name before watching this movie.
I would have remembered Fox. I don't think I would have remembered Lucius.
That's pretty good. It's better than nothing, I guess. So, this movie also, it doesn't invent the scene, but it does, it is the most prominent, like, early point of, the pearls. The pearls.
What's wrong with the pearls?
Every single Batman movie after this movie has Bruce Wayne's parents getting murdered, one, which does not need to be retread in every single Batman movie. But all of them also have a shot of like the pearls like bouncing on the ground. Mm-hmm. And it's more and more egregious every time. Like these pearls have picked up symbolism that they did not have before.
And was it Batman v Superman where it was like in slow-mo?
Yeah,
Yes.
Batman v Superman is the worst about it because not only does Joe Chill show up and like shoot them to steal the pearls, he actively like hooks the pearls around the back of the gun, so when the hammer like falls, it snaps the necklace and the pearls drop in slow motion and bounce for a good like 40 seconds.
Because that's what they're doing in the title credits.
Yeah.
They're literally having the pearls like bounce off the ground while they're playing the credits, and it's just like, oh my goodness,
Yeah.
stop.
Everyone who ever complained about like Uncle Ben not being in the new Spider-Man, this is what we're skipping. Do you want him to die every single movie? Because that's what that is.
Do you think we're gonna get Uncle Ben in No Way Home?
I feel like they're gonna have more of a mention of him.
I mean, yeah, he's already dead though.
Yeah, and like
I mean, you're not gonna get him as a character unless they go back in time.
I mean, there's a multiverse happening.
and Uncle Ben is an alternate Spider-Man.
Yeah.
So you're saying it's gonna happen in Across the Spider-Verse?
Yes, of course. It might, honestly. I don't know.
One thing I was thinking during this movie is how impractical a weapon that vaporizes water is. Because you as a human being cannot stand near that thing.
Yeah, except for in this movie, they were absolutely doing just that. They're just
Yep.
standing right
Yep.
next to this thing.
It only vaporizes water that's not inside of a living being. But
Yeah.
water inside pipes that are significantly farther away, instantly vaporized.
Yeah, like inch-thick metal pipes that, contain the city pressurized water. These really strong, durable pipes. Yeah, totally. The microwaves go right through that, no problem, and not through a human body though.
The spit in your mouth, perfectly fine.
Yep. And you know how your microwave has like, a steel box to contain all the microwaves? Yeah, no, it's absolutely will penetrate right through that steel pipe. Absolutely.
Well, Josh, they said they were focused microwaves.
It's totally different. In
Oh,
fact,
man.
no, I'm
Oh,
done. I'm
no.
done with this bit. I can't keep going.
Thank you. I was
It was ridiculous. I'm just like, why would you go microwaves?
Yeah.
Of all the things, the only thing that doesn't penetrate metal.
It was an interesting choice.
And I just thought it was funny because they're like, yes, this was invented for desert warfare, where water is a more precious resource. And I'm like, okay, cool, but can you,
Can you point it at a human?
can you point it at not your water supply? Okay, I know they say focused microwaves, but it really did just seem like it was just radiating this field of water boiling.
Yeah, absolutely. Because when they were on the train,
Yeah.
the sewers were blowing up as they went by.
Yeah. And it wasn't like it was pointed downwards at them. It was just sitting there. So it was just like, is there just this bubble of boiling water everywhere?
Mayhaps.
What if it's raining? How does that work?
There's water in the air, too.
Just in general. Have you ever lived in Florida?
Yeah.
Oh yeah, this would not work in Florida. The entire state would just explode. But it's cool. We're in New Jersey, so it's fine. It is also something that bothered me about the Batman v Superman and the DCEU movies, is that they're like, oh yeah, no, Gotham and Metropolis are sister cities. They're right across the river from each other. They're not even in the same. Gotham is in New Jersey, Metropolis is in Delaware. They are not right next to each other.
Oof.
Good.
Kind of just retconned that.
Yeah, we're just gonna move these cities around, I guess. Whatever, it's fine.
We're going to take Metropolis and
And
push
put
it
it
somewhere
somewhere
else.
Good.
There are also many other problems with those movies, but that's for another time.
I thought it was going back to the microwave emitter. They specifically,
You're still on that.
they specifically said that this was for taking out an entire city's water supply. And yet the whole critical point of this movie was that they had to wait for the train to get close. And it's like, if this device was set to just vaporize the entire city's water supply, why do you have to transport it? You just turn it on, it vaporizes the whole thing.
Well, because in a place like a desert, you just have like a water tower for the town, not a whole system.
I guess.
Also, I think they said something about it being like in test, like it was not.
Yeah, it's a prototype.
Yeah, so clearly it was not completed or properly working.
Okay, I was just like, well, that defeats the entire purpose of the whole train sequence at the end. Like,
Yeah. So, we have made some mention to other superhero like franchises and heroes themselves, but this movie really did change the landscape of superhero movies, and then via domino effect of all movies for the next like several years. Because before this movie, Blade was technically a comic book movie, but he's not a superhero. But like, think about the superhero movies that came out before and around this, like the original Fantastic Four movies.
Those were great.
They were great. But like those, the like earlier Batman movies, which were kind of dark but still campy, and then even Spider-Man in 2001 was, it took a more serious tone, but it was still very bright and colorful, and like the Green Goblin was a Power Rangers villain.
Yeah.
Like I think one time like Spider-Man punched him and sparks flew out.
Just how strong Peter Parker is.
Yeah.
what you didn't realize is he grabbed his spider brass knuckles.
He's connected to the red and the blue parts of the morphin grid, that's all. But no, like it's superhero movies were goofy and tongue-in-cheek before this, and then after this they suddenly got very serious and dark and gritty, and like Iron Man was a very serious movie. Like there were jokes in it, as has become the Marvel style, but it was very grounded and realistic. The DC movies also kind of took after this, going forward after this trilogy, and clearly we can see where those two styles have diverged, and clearly the more comedic kind of tongue-in-cheek style has come out on top, with like Marvel's presence versus whatever's DC is doing with their new multiverse.
Yeah. Their expanded universe.
No, it is officially the DC expanded multiverse now.
Yeah.
Oh god.
They announced the name change during the fandom last weekend.
Oh no.
Yeah, but like it seems like every single DC EMU,
Nope.
No.
MEU,
No,
No?
there's no more U. We just got rid of the U. DCEM.
EM.
I
Is that
hate it.
really?
DC expanded multiverse. That's the name.
All right.
DCAM.
EM.
I like DCEM.
DCM. Anyway,
Detective Comics. Anywho, go ahead.
like all the DC movies after this seem to be very dark in tone
And also visuals.
that was exactly
Also
what I was gonna
visuals.
say.
You
I was
can't
gonna say
see a
in
thing.
cinematography. Like
You can't see a thing in these movies.
like if you have a single light source on in your house when you're trying to watch these, you can't see anything.
Oh man, I watched the Snyder cut.
Oh my
First off, I
goodness.
watched it in one sitting, which was a mistake.
It's absolutely a mistake. I watched bits and pieces of that with you.
Yeah, I had to watch it in total darkness to see anything, and I had a headache from a couple things, but mostly eye strain at the end of those 4 hours. And this movie is where that starts.
I do think that this trilogy of Batman movies, though, was like the best thing DC has put out.
Absolutely.
Oh, it's
Ever.
definitely at the top of that ladder.
Absolutely. I mean, like Wonder Woman's up there.
The first one. I haven't seen Wonder Woman 88.
I haven't either. but-
84.
The case in point.
I mean, the first Wonder Woman. I haven't seen the second one either. But like, the point is, these, like you said, these three, way up there. Wonder Woman's up there as well.
Wonder Man, not so much.
The Wonder Woman is up there as well.
I thought Aquaman was pretty good.
Aquaman was pretty good.
really enjoyed Aquaman. I think it didn't get a lot of praise for it, or less praise than it should, because I really enjoyed it. But I understand that it's not everyone's favorite DC movie.
I never saw Aquaman.
It was pretty good.
It was pretty good.
That's generally what I heard. I just never got around to seeing it.
Yeah, like I know a lot of people talk about Wonder Woman as being really, really good, and I personally think Aquaman and Wonder Woman were about equal.
Well, of course they're equal, Josh. Why wouldn't they be?
Yeah, they're all on the Justice League together.
No. If Wonder Woman could, if it was a 1v1, Wonder Woman would absolutely come out on top.
Oh, 100%.
I'm talking about the movies.
We were not. No one here was talking about power levels.
Okay, I was like, hold on, what? No.
Listen, even if it's cool, Jason Momoa Aquaman, he's not winning that fight.
Yeah.
Nope.
He's pretty strong and he has thick skin from being Atlantean. She is a god.
Quite literally.
Yeah, I will say about the Batman Begins trilogy also, it definitely is in the wrong order.
Yeah.
The Dark Knight should be the third movie.
Okay.
Like, because The Dark Knight Rises, I get that the ending is very like, it's a finale, we're done. But aside from that, it's not a good end of the trilogy. Like, one, Bane is not who you think of when you think of Batman's ultimate enemy or his ultimate
No.
Yeah.
it's the Joker,
Yeah.
who we got rid of in the second movie. We also kind of hinted at the end of this movie, but I don't think they were really planning on doing anything with that. Which I think is also the issue, is that they hinted at the Joker at the end of this one because they're like, here's a fun little Easter egg, and then they got a sequel and they're like, well, I guess we gotta do the Joker now. And they knocked it out of the park, even though they did not follow up on that Easter egg at the end.
Yeah.
But then they got a third movie, and they're like, I guess we can do Bane. And they changed a bunch of stuff about Bane.
Oh, yeah.
Who would you have preferred that they do if they still had Joker in the second movie?
Maybe the Riddler.
I personally like the Riddler, but that's just because, like, I liked him in the movie that he was in.
I think the Riddler
They-
probably would have fallen flat after
Yeah.
the Joker.
Yeah.
Yeah. The Riddler is really good as like a secondary villain or just
Yeah.
like someone who's making trouble on the side.
Yeah.
Well, so was Bane.
But yeah, once again, Bane he's not a very complicated man. He's a big, strong guy.
Yeah, I'm just trying to think of all the other, like, the major Batman villains besides Joker and Scarecrow. Because-
Mr. Freeze.
Mr. Freeze.
Mr.
the
Freeze,
Penguin,
The Penguin.
Catwoman's more of like an anti-hero at this point.
What
Poison
about
Ivy.
Poison Ivy? Yeah.
Yeah, I think we could have done a different version of Poison Ivy from like the last time she was in the movies and made it very, like a very real threat.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Honestly, Poison Ivy is one of his most dangerous enemies.
Yeah, there's also a lot of enemies that just don't get a lot of like attention.
Calendar Man.
Well, yeah, for good reason. that
Sorry,
guy.
who?
Calendar Man.
Calendar Man.
He commits crimes based on holidays.
Okay.
So
So you just know exactly when he's going to do something.
Yes,
Man Bat.
Man-Bat's pretty good, I think.
Firefly.
He's a guy with a jetpack and a flamethrower. It's
Who's Man-Bat? Is it like
Is-
Spider's Man?
sort of. He's a giant bat person.
Okay.
He's a scientist. He got mutated into a giant bat.
Okay.
That's it. That's the whole thing.
Man Bat.
Interesting.
The Court of Owls would be
The Court of Owls
really cool.
would have been an amazing like. See, that would have definitely been
That would have
a
been
good
finale,
end of
yeah.
the trilogy.
But I don't think the Court of Owls existed,
Well,
like in the comics.
I don't think it existed at the time, and also, this version of Gotham doesn't have any other rich people. Apparently,
Yeah, I guess it's just the Waynes.
it's Bruce Wayne and a couple of his friends. So there's not.
There were a good chunk of people at his party.
There were,
I
but
mean, they could have had the CEO that, lost his job at the end.
yeah,
They could have had him come in.
yeah, and I think part of the reason the Court of Owls could have worked is that it's anonymous, and so you're like, we don't need to have characters for all these rich people. It's just a bunch of people in owl masks. That's it. That's Court of Owls. You
Yeah.
don't need to know who they are actually. But it just, I think it would have been really good. I think it would need a little bit more setup just
Yeah.
for the world that this movie takes place in.
Yeah, like if they were going to be doing the Court of Owls, setup for it would have started in this movie.
Yeah.
Like it's a lot. It's literally like a huge secret organization.
Of all of the rich people in Gotham who are like, hey, we secretly control everything.
Yep.
But it's a good foil for Batman because A, they're rich, and B, their enforcer, Talon, is like Batman but owl themed.
Mm-hmm.
And so that is quintessentially what superhero movies are best at. It's, hey, what if we picked a villain who is just an evil version of the hero? They're foils. If you want to use, like literary terms and whatnot.
So, after this series was over, we briefly got Ben Affleck as Batman.
Which I think he did a good job, honestly.
I think he did fine.
With the material he was given,
Yeah.
he did a good job.
I think of all of the actors who have played Bruce Wayne / Batman, he's the one who looks the most like how I envisioned Batman would look.
Yeah, I mean, I think Christian Bale does a good job for like year one Batman, but like Ben Affleck is a very good, hey, I've been in this business for a long time Batman.
Yeah.
Like his suit was cool. He did a good job as Bruce Wayne. I kind of wish he got his own movie to be Batman.
Yeah.
Instead of just fighting Superman.
Yeah, instead of just jumping to one of the like The Dark Knight is not a good Batman story because it's a deconstruction of Batman. And so for that to be your introduction to Batman in this universe is bad.
Mm-hmm.
Because he is, in that story, an old man who is like grossly out of character because he's old and jaded and like semi-retired from being Batman. And so it's a cool story and it's iconic. It's not a good introduction to your character. Also, The Death of Superman is a really bad immediate sequel for Superman.
Yeah.
Fair.
And also, Fighting Doomsday is a really bad introduction to half of the Justice League when they didn't have setup movies. And doing all three of those stories in the same movie was a terrible idea.
Yep.
Like, imagine if the MCU decided it's like, all right, here's the Avengers. You have no idea who these characters are yet. We're introducing them now.
It starts like Iron Man 1 comes out, and then we jump straight to the Avengers, and Captain America dies.
Yeah.
So I will say they did do that a little bit in Civil War by just introducing Tom Holland as Spider-Man and Paul Rudd as Ant-Man.
Ant-Man had his own
Ant-Man-
movie before Civil
Did he?
War.
Yeah.
Ant-Man
Oh,
did,
okay.
but as far as Tom Holland goes,
Yeah.
he was more of a almost cameo. He was slightly
Yeah.
more than a cameo.
Yeah.
T'Challa did premiere in that movie. So Spider-Man and Black Panther did both first appear in that movie. But that said, that is two of our characters out of a very large ensemble cast who all had previous movies to establish their characters. So them being the only new characters was perfectly reasonable.
Especially since they didn't really focus on why Spider-Man was doing stuff, because this was just an introduction like, hey, we have a movie coming out for him. This is a little taste of what it's gonna be like, kind of. And then they focused all the like story narrative of setting up a character on T'Challa because it was a movie focused around
Yeah.
like a character that had to do with T'Challa.
Like this, one of the central events of the movie was the death of T'Chaka, his father. So it makes sense that he is introduced there. The introduction of the other Justice League members in Batman v Superman is so clumsy that Lex Luthor just emails them a bunch of videos with superhero insignias already done,
Yeah.
saying, "Hey, check these people out. That's cool, huh?" Anyway,
It was a very good portrayal of Lex Luthor, though.
Yeah.
it was. He did a good job.
Jesse Eisenberg.
Yeah, that's his name, Jesse Eisenberg.
The dude from Now
Mark
You See Me.
Zuckerberg.
The dude from Now You See Me.
I like those movies.
Now You See Me was
I haven't seen
Yeah.
the second one, and really want to, but I know there's not going to be another one.
I think it's on the list.
I think it is.
Probably.
The first one's one of my favorite movies.
Oh, yeah.
Like, of all time.
Oh, good. Everyone I've like ever talked to about Now You See Me didn't like it, so I was like, all right, well, I'm just not gonna talk about it anymore.
Why?
Oh, no. I loved that movie.
It's good.
It is.
Josh?
I've never seen it.
No,
We
you
watched
have.
it in this
we watched
house.
it with you because you
Never
had
seen it.
Do you not remember anything? Woody Harrelson was in it. About all the magicians that do like a bank heist.
Yeah, no, I know.
Morgan
I was
Freeman was
joking.
there.
I was just joking with you. I know what you're talking.
So was
about.
Michael Caine.
I know.
Josh, we literally watched it because you hadn't seen it. We went, we're gonna watch Now You See Me. It was like a random like Thursday.
I know. I'm just playing with you guys. I remember the movie.
He's just joshing.
Ha ha ha.
That's what you deserve.
Fine, I'll take it.
So we were talking about Ben Affleck's Batman for a little bit.
Yeah.
How do we think Robert Pattinson's gonna do?
I think he'll do pretty good.
He's a good actor, and
Yeah.
I like him in all of the things he's in, even if I don't like all the things he's in. It's okay, he doesn't either. But also from the trailer that just came out, it looks like it's gonna be good. Like,
Yeah,
I'm excited to see his take on the character.
I think it'll be interesting.
Yeah.
I'm glad he's getting something after that series.
Yeah.
Look, Harry Potter wasn't that bad. I know Cedric Diggory wasn't in a lot of it, but he did a good job.
Has he? No, he's been in stuff after that.
He has. It just hasn't been super big stuff after that.
I mean, I guess that's true.
He went from a vampire to a bat.
Are there any final thoughts?
I mean, I had a bunch of notes still, but are we ending there?
No, we can go through the notes.
Says you, I have work in the morning.
Listen, Josh, you've had much worse jokes. You can't just end on mine because of. All right, we're lightning round these. Yeah, a sub note to it's a tragedy that none of the other members of the Bat family ever show up in this franchise. Joseph Gordon-Levitt, whose character's middle name was Robin, does not count, and that was stupid.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, remember that? That was dumb. Oh yeah, there was a weird like underground railroad part of the history of Wayne Manor,
Yeah.
and I was like, that's cool, I guess. Why?
Never touched upon again.
Yeah.
Justice runs in the family.
That was just super weird that they didn't have to explain that there was caves under this manor. I'm like, okay, you built a house here, you found some caves, you put like extra foundation there so your house didn't fall into the caves. That was fine, I guess. It's cool that you have an elevator into the house already built. Jim Gordon, the only uncrooked cop in the city.
Honestly.
I guess like the chief or whatever the other guy was, he was good, I guess.
Are you talking about his superior?
Yeah, I don't remember what his rank was.
Now, is he dead? Because he was definitely like next to a sewer when it blew up.
Yeah, I think he got a concentrated dose because like Gordon comes back at the end of the movie. He's like, "Well, I'm a lieutenant now," and I'm like, "Well,
What
yeah,
happened
I
to
guess,
your
I
lieutenant?
guess the guy's dead." He should have had more faith in Batman.
When does he become commissioner?
I think he becomes commissioner at the end of 2, at the end of the second movie.
So every movie he gets a promotion.
Every movie he helps Batman.
More police above him keep dying because they don't trust Batman. The Panda Red on TikTok pitched a Batman horror movie that was from the POV of like a goon.
Yeah.
That sounds amazing.
Yeah. Just okay. So this guy makes great content. I love him.
One, yeah, super good content.
Super good content. A lot of it is his take on what goons think when the Bat family comes and fights them.
It's really good. But this one, like most of his content is comedy. This one is like just a movie pitch for a horror movie of like, hey, what is it like to be a random low-level thug, but you don't know Batman isn't like an actual monster. and that's like a scary movie.
Yeah, I guess they just have no idea that he's just a human.
Yeah,
Yeah,
he's just the guy in a suit.
Canonically, in the comics, it's mentioned that criminals are cowardly and superstitious.
That's the quote.
So they see this guy dressed as a bat and all these other vigilantes dressed up, and they're like, these are just demons.
Yeah, I mean, especially early Batman, where it's like, all right, well, no one has ever gotten a good look at him. If he shows up on camera at all, it's like blurry. His eyes glow.
Are
Like
you saying that Batman is Bigfoot?
He is an urban legend.
Yeah.
In that city, he
Like-
is the Bigfoot of Gotham.
Like, canonically, people in Gotham think Batman is an urban legend.
Batman's the cryptid.
Yeah,
The Bat family are cryptids.
I mean, by the time it's like the Bat family, they know that it's like, oh no, like Nightwing's just the dude in a suit who beats you up with sticks.
Yeah.
But like when in the beginning,
Red Hood is just a mob
Red Hood's a
boss.
guy with guns. But in the beginning, when he was just Batman, he was a legend. Like, it's also really funny because in the comics, Superman exists around the same time, and so Metropolis is like, yeah, we have a superhero. He flies, and he's real. And the Gotham's like, yeah, we have a cryptid. I don't necessarily believe in him.
It's like, yeah, we have Mothman.
Yeah, essentially.
And then Robin comes on the scene, and there's just a brightly colored shadow now.
Yeah, there's a child running around with a demon. If you can see the child, it's too late.
Sorry, you said the child, and I thought of Baby Yoda.
Oh,
Gosh dang it.
I mean, yeah,
You can
Grogu and Din have a very similar dynamic, actually.
If you can see Grogu, there's a gun at your head already.
you're already
'Cause-
dead.
I personally like season 1 of Young Justice. Like that era, like in that universe, that era Batman and Robin. I like to think that Batman's still an urban legend and not a public face of the Justice League.
I mean, it's a nice thought, but he does
But I
show
also
up in daytime.
yes, he
in his
does,
open
and I
scene.
don't like that at all. But Robin in that season is just really creepy.
Yeah, he's a menace because he has all of the ninja training, but he's also like
He's
13.
He's 13.
So he just laughs maniacally as he disappears into the jungle, and everyone's like, "Where'd he go?" His own teammates are like, "Hey, I was just talking to you. That's rude."
I just imagine the terror he inflicts upon his enemies in Gotham.
Yeah.
This 13-year-old menace.
All right. My last note is that in this movie, Batman Begins, the Batman does not appear until the 1 hour mark.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Like almost exactly.
I mean, do we know how long into the first Spider-Man movie it is until we see Spider-Man?
No, not off the top of my head, but
I'd imagine it's a decent length in.
Well, yeah, because that's a origin story movie.
I mean, this one is too, but
Yeah.
that's the thing. I don't think it's that far in. It also doesn't help that this movie is 2.5 hours, like 2 hours
Yeah.
and like 40 minutes long. So it
Yeah.
is a long movie on top of that. But like, there is just so much time devoted to. Okay, Bruce Wayne, he had his accident. He grows up and nothing. Like they cut most of his life out to the point where I thought we cut to after his training, where he's just an adult going to Joe Chill's like hearing.
Yeah, that's what I thought. And it was like, this dude's been trained by an assassin, and he brings a pistol?
It's also weird because they shoot that out of order, but that's not important. So we go through his childhood. He fails to assassinate Joe Chill. He runs away, lives as a criminal, masters several forms of martial arts
Off screen.
off screen, and then after that gets recruited by the League of Shadows. What happened in that interim where he learned several different styles of martial arts?
He survived in prison.
Yeah, and he went to the prison dojo, I guess.
Yeah. Like, also, the way that they aired that, they didn't really show you him going to the courthouse with the gun until after they do all the, like, introduction stuff to the League of Shadows, right?
Yeah.
It's like, it really throws off your sense of time, because they don't, like, give you any kind of title card about, like, hey, this is in the past, this is the future. It's just kind of like, here's a jump cut,
Here
and
he is, and his hair is slightly different.
yeah, and it's like, hey, here's a jump cut, and he looks slightly different than he did before. Figure it out.
Yeah, so they go through all of that. He apparently just wrecks the entire League of Shadows.
Yeah.
Also, they left out the Lazarus Pit and any of the actually cool stuff about Ra's al Ghul.
Yeah.
Like, the League of Shadows is neat. It's just like the Foot Clan, essentially, in this movie.
Yeah.
Because they left out the really dangerous part about Ra's al Ghul is that he's immortal because he has a pit of magic water that brings him back to life. So left that right out.
Yeah. They even made a nod to him being immortal.
Yeah.
But then it was just, oh wait, Bruce saved him.
His immortality is that he tells everyone that
Some other guy is Ra's
some
al
other
Ghul.
guy is Ra's al Ghul, and then
And that's how he's immortal.
that's how he stays immortal, because he just goes, all right, now this person is
Yeah.
me now.
Does that make Padme immortal in the first movie?
I mean, up until she's not.
We always come back to Star Wars.
We had to at some point.
Are there any final thoughts?
This is a fun time. We had a real hard time recording this, which is why we didn't have an episode last week.
Yeah.
We watched this movie twice.
You guys watched the movie twice.
Actually, I only watched it once because I actually paid attention the first time, unlike someone.
Are you blaming me for my dog being sick?
No. I'm just saying that you left an awful lot on the second viewing after having not paid attention the first time.
I watched the beginning of the movie the first time. I didn't see the ending. I watched the ending the second time.
I think it was a pretty good movie.
Yeah.
Like I said, these three are some of the best movies that DC has put out for sure, and it really helped start the whole superhero thing.
I like this movie, especially because it leads into, Heath Ledger's Joker and all of that. Like, if this movie didn't exist, that wouldn't exist. And I like this movie. Well, for one thing, it's a good movie on its own, but I like it even more because it sets up that.
Before I forget, Heath Ledger actually was auditioning for Batman
Yes.
when this came out. He was auditioning to be Batman, but they gave it to Christian Bale, and then came back to him when they were getting ready for the second movie. And we're like, hey, do you want to be the Joker? And then,
And then
Yeah.
he did an amazing job. Arguably one of the best Jokers.
yep.
I enjoyed the movie. I thought it was pretty long, but I enjoyed it.
You can't argue that.
Well, anyway, check us out on YouTube, on iTunes Podcasts.
We're on Facebook, HQ Movie Review, no S.
Well, this has been HQ Movie Review. I'm Josh.
I'm Jack.
I'm Brandon.
And I'm Heather.
Good night, everybody.
Don't let a bat kill you in your sleep.
What?